Ser Duncan the Tall was a knight who lived during the reigns of several Targaryen kings, including Daeron II Targaryen, Aerys I Targaryen, Maekar I Targaryen, and later Aegon V Targaryen. However, his origins were far from noble. He was born as an orphan in Flea Bottom, the poorest district of King's Landing, and grew up without knowing his family or exact age. As a child, he survived on the streets until he was taken in by a hedge knight named Sir Arlen of Pennytree. Arlen had previously lost his squire during the First Blackfyre Rebellion, and some years later found Dunk in King's Landing and decided to raise him as his new squire. Dunk was around 5 or 6 years old at the time. Under Arlen's guidance, Dunk spent several years traveling across the Seven Kingdoms, serving various lords and gaining practical experience rather than formal training. They served houses such as Tyrell, Florent, and Dondarrion, and traveled widely, though they never went north. During this time, Dunk learned basic swordsmanship, jousting, and the responsibilities expected of a knight, although his skill with a lance remained limited compared to other weapons like the sword, axe, or mace. Physically, Duncan grew into an unusually large man, eventually reaching nearly 7 feet in height. He was strong and quick despite his size, but he considered himself slow-witted and often repeated Arlen's nickname for him, Dunk the Lunk. Despite this, he developed a strong sense of honor and took the ideals of knighthood seriously, especially the duty to protect the weak. From an early point in his training, Dunk aspired to one day join the Kingsguard, although such a goal was unrealistic for someone of his background. In 209 AC, while traveling to a tourney at Ashford Meadow, Sir Arlen died. Dunk buried him and was left alone, with little coin and no clear future. Instead of abandoning the life he had known, Dunk chose to continue as a hedge knight. He claimed that Arlen had knighted him before his death, although the truth of this is uncertain. Taking Arlen's equipment, he traveled to Ashford to compete in the tourney. On the way, he encountered a bald boy who insisted on becoming his squire. Dunk initially refused, but the boy continued to follow him and eventually joined him under the name Egg. He believed him to be another orphan from King's Landing. Upon reaching Ashford, Dunk found himself unprepared. He had to sell one of his horses and parts of his equipment to afford armor suitable for the tournament. When registering, he claimed to be Ser Duncan the Tall, but was asked to provide someone to vouch for his knighthood. By chance, he encountered Prince Baelor Targaryen, who had known Sir Arlen, and agreed to vouch for him, allowing Dunk to compete. Since he could not properly bear Arlen's sigil, Dunk adopted a new one, a green shooting star above an elm tree at sunset, inspired by a star he had seen the night before. During the events at the tourney, Dunk became involved in a serious conflict after witnessing a puppeteer named Tansel being assaulted by Prince Aegon Targaryen. Dunk intervened and struck Aegon, an act that constituted a grave offense against royalty. He was arrested and brought before the royal court. The situation escalated due to false accusations and political tensions, leading to a trial by 7 being declared. Dunk was required to find 6 champions to fight alongside him against Aegon's side, which included several experienced knights and members of the Kingsguard. With the help of Egg, who revealed himself to be Prince Aegon Targaryen, Dunk secured allies, including Prince Baelor himself and several notable knights. The trial by 7 was a significant and deadly confrontation. During the battle, Dunk ultimately faced Aegon directly and managed to defeat him using his strength and practical fighting ability. Aegon yielded, which ended the trial in Dunk's favor. However, the outcome came at a cost. Several participants were killed or fatally wounded, including Prince Baelor, who died after being struck accidentally during the fighting by his brother, Prince Maekar. Following the trial, Dunk was cleared of all charges. Prince Maekar offered him a place at court and arranged for his son Aegon to serve as Dunk's squire. Dunk accepted Aegon as his squire, but chose to remain a hedge knight rather than enter noble service, believing that the experience would benefit the young prince. After the events at Ashford, Dunk and Aegon left together to travel across the Seven Kingdoms, beginning a partnership that would shape both of their futures.
After leaving Ashford, Ser Duncan the Tall continued traveling as a hedge knight with his squire, Aegon V Targaryen, who was still moving under the name Egg. Their journey first took them south into Dorne. During this period, they avoided the effects of the Great Spring Sickness, a devastating plague that spread through much of Westeros but did not reach Dorne. While traveling through the region, Dunk had limited experience with noble customs and at one point offended Lady Vaith, reflecting his unfamiliarity with highborn society. The journey itself was difficult, and at one point Dunk lost his horse, forcing both him and Aegon to continue on a single mount. They later traveled by river and sea, including a voyage to Old Town, during which Dunk experienced combat at sea while helping defend the ship from raiders. Eventually, Dunk and Aegon returned to the Reach, where they entered the service of Sir Eustace Osgrey, a minor landed knight whose fortunes had declined significantly. Also present was Sir Bennis of the Brown Shield, an older hedge knight known to Dunk. During their time at Standfast, a dispute arose between Eustace and the neighboring lands of Lady Rohan Webber of Coldmoat. The conflict centered around control of a water source, but underlying tensions were tied to past loyalties during the First Blackfyre Rebellion, as Eustace had supported the losing side. The situation escalated after Bennis attacked one of Rohan's peasants, provoking retaliation. Dunk attempted to resolve the issue peacefully and even traveled to Coldmoat to negotiate directly with Rohan. During their meeting, it became clear that both sides were influenced by past grievances as much as present needs. When open conflict seemed likely, Dunk chose to prevent unnecessary bloodshed by dismissing the small group of peasants who had been gathered to fight for Eustace. Despite this, the dispute was ultimately settled through a trial by combat. Dunk fought on behalf of Eustace against Rohan's champion, Sir Lucas Inchfield. During the fight, Dunk relied less on formal swordsmanship and more on physical strength and grappling, eventually killing Inchfield, though he was severely wounded in the process. Afterward, the conflict was resolved without further violence, as Eustace and Rohan came to terms and later agreed to marry, ending the dispute. Dunk and Aegon then continued their travels, moving north toward the Riverlands. While initially intending to seek service elsewhere, they encountered a group of nobles and knights, including Lord Gorman Peake and a man known as Sir John the Fiddler. They were invited to attend a wedding at Whitewalls, where a tourney was to be held with a dragon egg as the prize. Although the event appeared legitimate, Aegon became suspicious due to the presence of many individuals who had supported House Blackfyre in the past. At Whitewalls, Dunk entered the tourney under a false identity as the Gallows Knight, using a temporary sigil. He was defeated early in the joust, but remained at the event. Over time, it became clear that the gathering was not simply a wedding celebration, but a cover for a planned rebellion. The central figure in this plot was John the Fiddler, who claimed to have prophetic dreams. He spoke to Dunk about a vision in which Dunk wore the white armor of the Kingsguard, suggesting a future of greater importance. As events progressed, tensions increased. A young knight, Glendon Ball, was accused of stealing the dragon egg, though the accusation was false and part of a larger scheme. Dunk's attempts to intervene led to further conflict, including an attempt on his life by Sir Alan Cockshaw, who attacked him out of jealousy. Dunk survived and killed Cockshaw in self-defense. At the same time, Aegon took a significant risk by revealing his identity indirectly and claiming that royal forces were already on their way, which caused panic among the conspirators. Dunk confronted John the Fiddler and recognized him as a Blackfyre pretender. The situation culminated in a trial by combat between the pretender and Glendon Ball. Glendon won the duel decisively. Shortly afterward, forces loyal to the crown, led by Brynden Rivers, arrived at Whitewalls. The rebellion, known as the Second Blackfyre Rebellion, was effectively ended before it could fully begin. The conspirators were arrested or punished, and order was restored. Dunk and Aegon were allowed to leave and continue their journey. These events further reinforced Dunk's reputation, not through formal recognition, but through his repeated involvement in significant conflicts and his consistent adherence to his sense of duty. At the same time, Aegon continued to gain first-hand experience of the realm, observing both the behavior of the nobility and the conditions faced by common people, experiences that would later influence his rule as king.
As time passed, the role of Aegon V Targaryen in the realm changed significantly.
Following the death of his father, he eventually ascended the Iron Throne in 233 AC. By that point, Ser Duncan the Tall had already spent years traveling with him and had become one of his most trusted companions. After Aegon became king, Duncan remained in his service and took on more formal responsibilities within the royal court. One of his early duties under Aegon's reign included escorting Maester Aemon to Eastwatch by the Sea, where Aemon joined the Night's Watch, removing himself from any potential involvement in succession disputes. At some point after Aegon's coronation, Duncan was appointed to the Kingsguard. Although the exact date of his appointment is not clearly recorded, he is known to have been serving as a Kingsguard knight by 236 AC. His elevation to this position marked a significant shift from his earlier life as a hedge knight, as the Kingsguard was composed of elite warriors sworn to protect the king. Duncan's inclusion in this order reflected both his proven ability in combat and the trust Aegon placed in him. During his service, Duncan participated in major conflicts affecting the realm. In the Fourth Blackfyre Rebellion, he personally killed Daemon III Blackfyre, one of the claimants to the throne, helping to end the rebellion. This further established his reputation as a capable and reliable warrior in service to the crown. In 239 AC, Duncan was again called upon to act directly in defense of royal authority. When Prince Duncan Targaryen broke his betrothal to the daughter of Lord Lionel Baratheon and instead married a common-born woman known as Jenny of Oldstones, Lionel rebelled against the crown. To resolve the conflict, a trial by combat was arranged. Duncan fought as King Aegon's champion and defeated Lionel, bringing the short-lived rebellion to an end. By this period, Duncan had risen to the position of Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, placing him in charge of the order and making him one of the most prominent knights in the realm. Despite his high status, there is no indication that his personality changed significantly. He remained known for his straightforward nature and strong sense of duty. In later years, Duncan continued to take part in tournaments and royal events. At a tourney held in King's Landing around 252 or 253 AC, he was defeated by a young knight, Barristan Selmy, who was approximately 16 years old at the time. This event is often noted as an early indication of Selmy's exceptional skill, rather than a decline in Duncan's abilities. Duncan's life came to an end during the tragedy at Summerhall in 259 AC. The exact circumstances of the event remain unclear, but it involved a fire at the royal mezzanine of Summerhall that resulted in the deaths of several members of the royal family, including King Aegon V and Prince Duncan. Duncan was also present and died during the incident. Although detailed accounts are lacking, it is suggested that he played a role in saving others during the disaster, consistent with his established character and actions throughout his life. Overall, Duncan's life represents an uncommon trajectory within Westeros. Born without status or family, he rose through personal merit and loyalty rather than inheritance. His long association with Aegon V influenced the king's perspective and policies, particularly regarding the common people. Duncan's legacy is therefore tied not only to his own actions, but also to the broader impact he had on the ruler he served.